Hey everyone, I'm Goreflow, and today I'm joined by Inference.
Hey guys.
We are here to discuss the tier list predictions for Season of the Bear. Now, we have 20 some odd decks or archetypes laid out here, and Inference and I are going to go through them and talk a little bit about each one and whether or not we think it'll be good or not so good. Before we get started, I'm just going to tell you the archetypes that each of these images represent, and then we can get going. So starting here at the top left, we have Masquerade Ball. Then we have Assimilate. This is Colgrim. Now, Inference, what's the name of this card again? Because
So
I don't remember.
that is a cleaver, right? The new syndicate card.
Okay,
And that represents crimes. Yeah.
makes sense. All right, so we'll say Cleaver Crimes for this one. Passiflora, Fire Sworn, Arrakis Swarm, Eltalis, Vampires, V, Witchers, Northern Realms Witchers, Shield Wall, Dun Banana Swarm. That's kind of a new one. Then we're onto Scoytel. We have Dwarves, Nature's Gift, Deadeye, Deadeye Traps. This is Strike with Gourd. And then onto Skellige, we have Gedineth, Lippy, Pirates, Warriors, and then finally we have Matic here, representing the kind of overall Matic decks that we haven't covered through the rest of these, just from all different factions. Whatever faction you want to jam Matic in, we'll just call this miscellaneous Matic. So, Inference, do you want to get started with any deck in particular?
So I think I'd like to start with NR Witches. And I think this deck last season was had an argument for being the best deck. I think it was really, really strong. Even in really bad matchups, a lot of the time you just won. In really bad situations, a lot of the time you just somehow pulled points out of nowhere and just won. Although the deck did get 2 nerfs, Vesemir got an adrenaline nerf, and Scytheman got a Rolock nerf. I think the deck's still going to be really good. I'm expecting to see quite a bit of unitless as well this patch particularly, and so I think that NR Witches generally does okay into that because it doesn't rely on a lot of removal for its points. So I think this deck is going to be super good, and I'd probably put it in A tier.
I think I agree. Just to touch on a couple of the points you made, good call. Northern Realms Witcher is definitely not suffering from going against a unitless playstyle, usually only running 1 or 2 boiling oils and potentially 1 gold targeted damage in either Anseus or I guess a Vanilla Geralt, or pick your poison. And having the really big point slam potential, not really getting nerfed too much, having those the Silver Witcher trio with tons of carryover and the full leader, I mean, that's not changed at all. And sure, it'll be a little bit more awkward with Vesemir Mentor getting the Adrenaline 4 instead of 5, and the row locking of the Scytheman, but yeah, I think A tier is a safe place to put this one. Agreed. So then perhaps we should continue on with Northern Realms then?
Yeah, so next up is Shield Wall, and I think this deck is going to be okay.
I'm leaning
However,
towards B.
Yeah, I was thinking more C, honestly. I think it's close between B and C. I think it's good, but it's kind of just stayed the same, right?
It has. I don't believe any of none of the changes this patch have directly influenced Shield Wall.
Yeah, and even last patch, it was kind of okay. I don't think it was a top deck. I don't think there was much reason for playing it over Witches, but it was solid.
Okay.
But with everything else mostly getting better,
Mhm.
I would be tempted to put it in C.
Okay.
However, Lockdown, I think, is a lot weaker as a leader, and that did kind of pose some issue for
Yeah. And
Shield Wall.
if we're looking, I guess whenever there's a patch, right, you have primary buffs and nerfs, and then you have secondary buffs and nerfs, which are unwritten, kind of unspoken. They're sort of, how does this deck improve or become worse based off of changes to other decks? And the Lockdown one is a big deal, right? Because all of a sudden, you're a lot more flexible with playing your shields against Lockdown. They can only lock your leader for 1 round now, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of like a buff to Shield Wall this patch, if you think about it.
Yeah, I think it kind of is. And I really think that there won't be too much in the way of, I suppose unitless is expected to be quite a big thing, and so engines against the unitless can be interesting depending on how much removal the unitless decks are playing. Obviously, they don't lose value on the removal because they don't really run any, but
I'm tempted to put this in B because I feel that the duels that Shield Wall has access to are going to be quite good against a lot of the new cards, especially some of the really powerful engines that we're seeing in Vampires, for instance.
Yeah, that is true.
Dwarves.
A lot of the new cards, kind of just got base like 6, 7, sort of with a couple of armor points, and that's easy for a Shield Wall, Unsaved, or Selkirk to deal with. That's very true.
Dual target. Yeah, I'll leave this one up to you. B or C?
I think I agree with B. I think B is fair.
All right. Okay. And one more Northern Realms deck, and that is the Dun Banners.
So, yeah, I'm gonna let you talk about this one because I have no idea how this deck even functions.
All right. So basically, I've already run into someone playing this on ladder, believe it or not. The way this works is just copying all of your Dun Banners as you play them, using, I guess, a leader like either Uprising or some kind of leader that can apply boosts. Copying your Dun Banners not only now with cards like Adalia and Blue Stripe Scouts, but also King Foltest, to make a copy of a card every time it is boosted for the first time, once at most once per turn. So this is just sort of giving you a way to copy and make more Dun Banners, and even more supporting that archetype. And then with cards like Pavetta, you can then put them all back in the deck and summon them out again. And then also, Northern Realms got Meave, which is a swarm supporting card that boosts all of your units by 1 after, I think, a 3-turn timer or a 2-turn timer, depending on Inspired. This is a tricky one because it's new. I did manage to beat it when I played it on ladder, but the version I played was probably highly unoptimized. I kind of wish we had a question mark tier because I have no idea where to put this one.
Yeah.
I guess C is sort of a safe spot. It's like it has potential, but it hasn't proven itself yet.
Yeah, so we might see like similar decks with maybe the Blue Stripes as well, as the Dun Banners. It's kind of the swarmy kind of carryover type decks, right? And I think it could be a meme, or it could be a kind of playable meme. I think so. So C tier sounds about right. Like,
this is the kind of deck that all of a sudden, a few days after patch, when people figure out what's going on, it could maybe find its way into like broken S tier. No one can beat this deck, but I think it remains to be seen how much potential the two new Northern Realms cards have for supporting this archetype.
Yeah, I think I agree.
That's my very optimistic opinion about this deck. Okay. Where shall we go next?
I think I'm going to leave this one up to you. You can pick.
Right. Let's go to warriors. I'm gonna pull warriors down here from where they're cut off at the bottom of the screen. I'll pull our boy what's his
Harold,
name?
yeah.
Harold up here into plain sight. Now, I think that warriors is gonna be like A or S tier, personally. What do you think? It's okay to disagree with that.
I think that the most likely leader that's going to be played is probably Blaze of Glory, right? With the iced, it's kind of pretty strong. Now there are some things to consider. I think in terms of power, this deck is kind of insane. However, I think the meta might not suit it because I expect there to be a lot of unitless decks running around, and against unitless decks, it's a deck that like outputs loads of damage as a lot of its points. You might not have a great time.
I think it just boils down to last say, really, with Blaze of Glory. Blaze of Glory, even against non-unitless, is just a deck that really, really wants last say. Like against a unitless deck, like I actually had the privilege to play this a little bit before we started today, and I played against some unitless decks, mostly they were like unitless Deadeye traps, kind of. Yeah. Like they just play a lot of traps, you can't damage them. But the thing is, I think I still think this is like really good because we have to talk a little bit about the iced. The iced is let's see, iced with Yutta and Blaze of Glory, and I built a deck basically that runs iced with Blaze of Glory and Greatswords. So if you meet your Bloodthirst requirements, you play iced, you discard a Greatsword. So iced let's assume round 3. Iced immediately plays for 5 plus 10, so it's 15 points. And then you play your leader, you discard Yutta, and then that's 12 more points. So we're talking about a 1 card, 1 leader combo that evaluates to 27 points on your side of the board and then deal 12 damage to anything.
Yeah.
In 1 turn. That's so insane. It's specifically good against very tall targets, but we've not seen this kind of point slam potential, I don't think, in quite a while.
It is kind of insane. And the good thing is, as well, it's points on your board. So against these no unit strategies, it's going to actually be quite good. Like, that's a lot of points.
I mean, I'm going to geek out about Iced a little bit more and share something cool I found. You know how it has 2 turns, right? It has a counter 2, so it can activate twice. Well, if you, for some reason, iced and you use one of the discards either through Iced's deploy, or if you don't meet Bloodthirst, you just get your leader off and he has 1 counter left. If you play Burna and you discard 2 cards in 1 turn next, both of those cards get summoned out of your graveyard, even though because they're in the same turn. It I don't know if that's intended or not, but
that doesn't sound intended. That sounds
like I basically tried jamming Iced in the discard warriors that I love so much, and it was freaking nutty. Like even when your Bloodthirst isn't set up, like you can still get these massive tempo plays.
That's really crazy.
I want to say S, but I'll settle for an A. What do you say?
Okay, let's chuck it an S. You know what? Like...
I think it's gonna be an S. Personally, it might not be the right meta for it, but it's kind of bonkers. But we'll see. All right, I picked the last one. So what do you think?
We should probably continue with Skellige. So
okay,
maybe Lippy.
Lippy, okay. So Lippy.
Yeah.
What do you think about Lippy?
I mean, okay, that image is also wrong. It's now 3 power. Sorry about that. But
no
I think Lippy is kind of bad. I just don't think it has everything else has gone better. Maybe you can start throwing some of the new stuff in there, but I don't know how much that's gonna be a thing. I just don't think the points are enough anymore with the nerfs and with everything else getting slightly better, right? I really don't respect it as a deck. I think there are better options out there for just point slam. Obviously, it's the best deck out there for red coin abuse, but I don't think too many decks like get really hard punished by that right now. So I think it's kind of a C-tier deck in my opinion. Like,
I mean, I agree with that. I don't think there's too much to add to that. Lippy didn't see any changes this patch, did it?
I don't believe so. It could include some of the new Skellige cards, maybe, but I don't know if it will.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, we don't. I mean, you know, it's Lippy's Lippy. We don't really have much to talk about here. I'll throw it in C. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's familiar with that deck by now. All right, moving on. How about Getty?
Okay, so Getty's an interesting one. I think it's okay-ish. Again, I don't think it got too much in the way of support. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, not this patch, but, you know, a couple patches ago, we got the portal buff again, and then we got the whole fish flappers thingamajig, which is okay.
Yeah, we got the bonded on the druid as well, right? Which is pretty big. I don't know how long that's been there for. But I think it's pretty just solid deck, to be honest. Like, it's okay, but I don't think it will be anywhere close to the level of warriors. I might put it in B.
Yeah.
Or
like,
C.
It's kind of like a shield wall tier, like used to be good, now is still kind of good sometimes, but you know, I mean, it's definitely a deck that you can win games with it, but
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I would put it like next to shield wall, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like, right. Why are you playing this deck instead of the better deck? But you can play it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like once everyone starts teching against the better deck, right? And they've got specific techs in place to counter it, then you bust this out, you bust shield wall out, and then you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be hard countered by these people who are trying to snipe warriors or, you know, witchers or whatever. And then that brings us to the other new archetype to talk about, which is the Pirates and Ships, which recently received Brack as a new card this patch. So I guess this is another mystery, I think, right?
Yeah, this one's going to be weird. I feel like it won't be great just because I don't have much faith in the archetype, and I think your new card is kind of just a 7-point body that might die. It gives some armor to some boats in your hand, or pirates, but that doesn't feel great.
So, all right. So 10 provisions, 7 points. Potential bonus value of, I guess you can say 4 points of bonus value if you armor 2 light longships. But I guess you can armor ships or pirates, right?
Yeah, true.
I guess you can see 4 points appearing if you armored your light longships, which is nice. I mean, that's kind of like it's kind of like a 7-point card that puts 6 points of carryover in your hand if you have the right hand.
True, although I think like this card would probably be around 3 card, and would you want to have light longships in your hand around 3? Like, it's kind of
I guess
kind of
well, there's also the gold ship, right?
Yeah, true.
That's the one that benefits from having armor. Isn't that one's ability? When you use the order, it has zeal, and when you use the order, it converts armor into points or something like that.
Yeah, so it has zeal. You order, lose all armor, and damage an enemy unit by that amount.
Oh, that's what it is. So, I mean, there you go. There's some carryover in terms of pirates. Not really sure which pirates want armor.
And there might be some self-damage pirates, or let me have a quick look.
Yep.
So yeah, there's some that like damage each other, but not great carryover options, honestly.
Maybe we'll throw this in C or D.
Maybe.
I'm so hesitant to throw a new archetype into D because I feel like there's unexplored potential there, but it really
maybe
doesn't sound good though.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great. think maybe
it's hard to see how
but-
this card's gonna. I know there were some changes to some pirates and ships, but it's hard to see how this card's gonna lift the entire archetype, which never really was a thing.
Yeah, I think the dim in a warship is actually kind of cool, but everything else was kind of eh.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. We are done with Skellige, so I guess we should talk about. Do you want to talk about Syndicate?
Cool.
Okay.
So let's start off with Fire Swarm. Swarm.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say straight up D tier.
Really?
I hate it. I really don't think this deck is very good.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm really not a fan.
I disagree. I mean, I've not played it in a while. I've not played Syndicate in a while, but didn't we see someone take Firesworn to like 26 plus one of these past few seasons?
I think so, but
Who was that? Someone did it. I can't remember who it was. You remember that? I think that someone told me. Someone was like, "Hey, such and such took Fireswarm to like 2650 or something this season. They're like the only person playing Syndicate." It was some pro rank player.
I can't remember, honestly.
I think again, this is like a good deck. It didn't get any buffs or nerfs with the patch, but it has a time and place, right? Like you're not gonna play this in, I guess, a meta that has lots of wide punish. Like, it's probably worse now that Arrakis Swarm has become popular, but...
Okay. I can, I guess, see that if you're in a meta where the best decks are unitless piles and warriors, maybe this becomes better, but my main issue with it is that it both goes tall and wide and has engines as a swarm deck. So it kind of just loses value to removal, tall punish, wide punish. Although it's like very point efficient, it just every type of punishes it. And it's kind of iffy in that regard.
All right, well, I mean, I guess we could throw it in D.
I think out of respect for you, Gorflo, I'll put it in C.
Let's put it in C. Let's put it in C for now. Maybe we can change it later if we want to. But
yeah,
this kind of made me think. Talking about that, debating putting it in D or C. I think it's probably a good idea for us. Oh, look, we've gotten down to the only one row of cards left to do. I think it'd be a good idea for us to just actually pick a deck that we think would go in D to give ourselves a baseline to compare against, because I feel like putting the Pirates there isn't enough. We don't know enough about it to really say. Do we have any other D tier decks that we want to pull out of the lineup here?
You know, if you asked me to pick one deck out of the lineup we have, before we made that last prediction, I put Firespawn in there.
I mean, if you still feel that way, well, we can put it in D. But like, all right, what's the next worst?
The next worst, I mean, maybe with the changes, Cloggers, but I mean, I hope it's D. I hope Cloggers is D tier, but it's
not V. You think V is still pretty good?
I don't think it's very good on ladder. Maybe it's V. Maybe Vi is like.
I wouldn't put Vi in V. I would put it in like C or D, but I don't know which one. All right.
Yeah.
Would you evaluate Fireswarm worse than Vi then?
Yeah, I think so.
Then okay, we'll stick this in D, and let's go on to Vi, and now let's talk about Vi a bit. Or V, or whatever.
Okay.
Whatever.
So, obviously, last patch it got really hard nerfs, right? It got a point. Also, that again, another not updated card. That should be 7 points. Passive revision as well, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it got pretty hard nerfs. Overwhelming Hunger got put to 2 charges. So overall, the deck loses a lot harder to things like removal, lockdown. Although lockdown is now pretty much gone.
Yeah, it doesn't do well in metas in which there's a lot of green strength punish.
Yeah,
but like that being said, like there's been a shift from Heart of Terror to like Urgvi in a lot of warriors right now, and
That's true, although I think warriors just have enough removal that now that your hunger is at 3, removing those consume engines becomes really big.
You know, I don't know if I misplayed or what, but when I was playing the new Skellige kind of style, I did lose to V today.
Okay.
You know, I think I did manage to control some of the consume engines, but it can be kind of challenging. A lot of V players are running bar guests now, and
Yeah,
you know they can
double
kind of
buckets. Yeah.
guarantee the fact that they're going to get their consumes off, and especially in round 1 on red coin, it can be practically impossible for Skellige players to answer consume engines. Like if they throw down a Barbagazi first, what are your options in round 1 as warriors? You know,
that's true.
you can't do
Or
anything
even like,
against
especially
it.
on blue coin.
Yeah,
Like,
If
nothing
I mean, if you can go first, and get down a raider or a light longship, sure. I mean, then maybe you have a chance or something. But actually, probably a raider. Light longship probably isn't even enough. You need the 2 points of damage. But if the V player goes first, a smart V player will not put down any of their like Intriga, Larva, or Bruxa or whatever. They'll go straight to the consume engines because they know once you get your damage set up, you can't do anything. But
yeah.
I feel like we went off on a bit of a tangent there. V is, well, I guess it's C tier, right?
Yeah, I'd agree on C tier.
Okay.
I think you can make an argument for higher in a meta where we're predicting that warriors will be S tier, but maybe C tier is fine for them.
I mean, like, let's look at it in context. We would evaluate Vi as worse than both Getty and Shield Wall.
Kind
of seems like it's almost as almost as good as them.
Probably on the same level. Yeah.
B maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like I think that makes sense. And now let's just take a quick moment before we go to the next one to look at this and make sure everything makes sense going from tier to tier. We got warriors on top, and our witchers close behind. Shield Wall, Getty, and Vi. Then Untitled Swarm and Lippy, followed by Pirates and Congregate. That seems like we're in the right ballpark at least.
Yeah, seems around right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
It's funny that Vi is still B tier after they nerfed it so hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's still pretty okay.
Yeah. Alrighty. So monsters. Do you want to save the best for last and go for Kelly next?
Okay, sure. Because I have no idea how vampires are gonna.
I actually know a bit. I did a little bit of maths on the vampires, and
okay,
I'm interested. I think they're gonna be kind of situationally good, but
okay.
Kelly got a big nerf, didn't
it? Kinda, yeah.
Carapace no longer being able to target neutrals means...
Yeah, so this is kind of, it's situationally like terrible and situationally just like not enough. It really depends.
I think that one of the biggest strengths of Keltalis was the fact that you could carapace your Ciri, and I mean, even if you don't have the defender, you can prevent it from being locked, you can prevent it from being removed.
That is true.
Like, I mean, like, I don't know, like, I guess you could try just playing Kelly as if nothing happened, but, you know, there's gonna be those situations where you're gonna have to play a naked Ciri with no defender, and you can't support it with your leader, and that's definitely gonna lower your win rate, like...
Yeah, so that's going to be the main issue, right? I mean, if you don't have access to defender or defender gets answered, Ciri is going to be terrible. Maybe to the point where it's a consideration not to play the card, and that's going to be really bad for Kelly.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay,
sorry. No, you go ahead.
But I think that, like, the deck itself, although Ciri is like a big important part of getting like card advantage, I think the deck can still function without it. Like, I think this kind of like tall build around Kelly sort of like just slam really high point cards deck can actually still work. I think it could be still kind of good. Anyway, do you want to continue?
Yeah, and I think it's not going to be as bad as we think, especially because a lot of the time when you want to play Ciri, it's on blue coin, right? You want to flip the coin, and in that case, you'll have Crystal Skull to basically do the same thing, give your Ciri points and Veil. It's basically like having an extra leader charge, but you can apply it to Ciri.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it'll still be good, just not as good, not as flexible. It like before, I would probably have put like Kelly decks. I'd probably put them in like, if we were doing this last patch, maybe I'd put it in S or A, but now I'm thinking B.
Yeah, I think probably B. I'm honestly tempted to put it in A because I do think it's better than Vi.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's significantly better than Vi.
Yeah, is it better than Shield Wall and Getty as well? You think? Even after this? I feel like this change, even though we're talking about ways you could play around it, I still think it's it's hard to say.
Another kind of argument, I guess, for Kelly is that I think a lot of these Swarm decks are gonna be quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I predict that Deadeye is gonna be pretty good still. I think that the Monster Swarm deck is gonna be pretty good still. Don't worry about Fire Swarm. And Warriors is obviously going to be very good, and these have generally been pretty okay matchups for Kel'Thas.
Okay, we could stick it in A then, I think.
Yeah, I think A is, given the meta, what we expect the rest of the list to look like. I think it's pretty, like, Witches an A, Warriors an S, like
yeah. All right. All right, moving on. We have one more monsters to cover before the new archetype. Arrakis Swarm, the newest member of the archetype family, more or less, before this patch. Kind of came about, I guess, towards the middle of last season, right?
Yeah, it was kind of sort of played around them, right? I think it's kind of good. It outputs so many points. It's gonna do great against some of the unitless decks, but then again, the trap deck might throw as an issue because that thing is playing Row Punish.
It is, and not only Row Punish, but Pitfall Trap with its any kind of deck that does lots of random 1-point pings. Really bad for our buddy Arrakis Swarm here.
Yeah.
Like looking at the decks, like what do you think? Like, I guess we should evaluate it. How well does it do against, like, I mean, Warriors is probably good against it, right?
So I'm not sure about that matchup. I haven't played enough, but I suspect it's Warriors kind of isn't great against it.
No. I guess like you have a lot of tall punish in Warriors, a lot of big damage, and it kind of gets wasted.
Yeah, it gets wasted on 2s and 1s. Although you do also have a lot of like 1-pings, like from Harold. Maybe you're playing Berserkers. Some people do. Maybe 1-ping boats. Maybe Blood Eagle, Hemdall, even maybe. Like, there are a lot of things you can throw in and make these cards like make the deck more Row Punishy, I guess.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I don't know like where we would put this. I'm leaning towards like this range kind of, but
I'm leaning towards A, honestly. Like, I think this deck's kind of good, but yeah, A or B.
Better than yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think the decks in B tier, it's definitely better than like.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I don't. This deck I don't know a lot about. I didn't really play it much.
I'm not the most knowledgeable of that deck.
Oh, you know, if any Arrakis Swarm fans out there, if we're misrepresenting this deck, I apologize. But all right. Finally, it's the Vamps.
Yep.
So let's.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the 2 new cards that Vampires got? Because both the monsters cards were for this archetype.
Yeah, that's kind of insane, right? It got 2 new cards for the archetype and loads of reworks. Loads of changes to some vampire cards, right? So, got Detlef, which is 6 power, 10 provision. Deploy, spawn Blood Moon on enemy row for 1 turn. Increase the duration by 1 for each adjacent vampire. Order, damage an enemy unit with bleeding by 1. Death Blow, spawn Ekamara on this row. Cooldown 1.
It's a lot of abilities for one card.
Yeah, so many abilities. So it's a 6 for 10 that is essentially, I mean, most of the time it's going to be spawning Blood Moon 3.
Exactly. That's so easy to set up.
Kind of crazy.
Like you just throw
by
down,
itself.
What's that card that spawns an Ekimara? Katakan? Is that what it is? Or no?
Yeah.
Is it Katakan?
I
was just thinking, the 5 power spawn an Ekimara.
Yeah, that's right.
That's so easy to make a vampire pocket. Blood Moon as well makes a vampire pocket. So like you can do it in like 2 turns if you want to not protect it with a defender.
You can just Blood Moon both rows. Like that's
I did some maths on that, and so we have a base value of 6. We have a bonus value of 6 from the 3-turn Blood Moon, which is pretty easy to set up. And then we have an additional bonus value of I calculated 3 points per turn off of the order ability, right?
Yeah, it's kind of conditional.
It's I mean, I think you're going to be applying so much bleed. It's fine. The way I worked it out was like, let's assume you perfectly bleed something. This is already kind of a big assumption. You perfectly bleed something and then you kill it, right? So the 1 damage doesn't really count because it's canceling out the 1 point of bleed you would have gotten otherwise. But the Ekimara spawn is just pure profit. So
true.
It's pretty much 3 points per turn potential if you're getting it set up every turn. And with Unseen Elder, I think that's, pretty reasonable. Like, this thing is applying tons of bleed.
Yeah, so Unseen Elder, 5 power, 12 provision. Deploy, give bleeding 4 to an enemy unit. At the end of your turn, give bleeding 2 to random enemy units without bleeding. Which is crazy. Devotion, bleeding on enemy units also triggers at the end of your turn.
So not only are you going to be bleeding more units, but you're going to be bleeding them faster and thus setting up your Detlef more easily, right? Because you're going to get them closer to the 1 point breakpoint where you can get the death blow and spawn more Ekimaras, because the bleeding is happening twice as fast now. Yeah,
so I do think that it's not going to be... I think it is going to be a kind of... You're not always going to have the Ekimara spawns. I think it's going to be maybe every other turn. I don't think it's going to be that consistent, but... These cards are both just kind of efficient instead of just slamming them down the board, right? Unseen Elder provides 6 bleeding on your opponent's board, plays as a 5 for 12, and it forces answers, right? There's no way your opponent doesn't answer this.
I think they're also going to be pretty good for the archetype because Vampires is one of those decks which already ran a defender to protect Orianna. So now it's like you don't even need to try and rework the deck to fit a defender to protect these cards. You just throw them right in. It already has a defender. And now you've got like kind of more bang for your buck if they can't answer the defender or the defender eats their one big removal heat wave or some other thing. Now, they have to choose. Are they going to answer the Detlef, the Unseen Elder, or the Orianna? Which could be kind of tricky for some decks.
It's kind of forces the opponent with a lot of removal. And there's still like a lot of the engine cards for Vampires are kind of strong. Like the what's it called? Let me just see. The Nekara. It's kind of actually really good. Like if it doesn't get removed, right? And
which one is that again?
Yeah, so order melee, give an enemy unit bleeding for 2 turns, cooldown 2 whenever you play a vampire, reduce by 1.
Yep.
It's just going to keep applying bleeding. And if your opponent chooses to remove or lock like your Nekarats, then maybe your your Unseen Elders going through, right? Which is obviously not something you want to happen. So by including Unseen Elder in your deck, your opponent's gonna have to hold some of this removal that could otherwise be used on your engines, right?
There's so many threats, so many really big threats. I mean, count them now, right? Like Defender, Oriana, Detlef, Unseen Elder, both Nekarats. With a deck that supports vampires so well, both of those can be, devastating, like you said. And then I guess, vampires, maybe a good idea would be to actually do sort of like, some decks, basically they overwhelm their opponent by putting too many threats where no reasonable deck has enough removal except for extremely heavy control decks. That might be the way forward for vampires, not sure, but
yeah.
I just want to point out this deck, although it is pretty decent, I think, it dies hard to the Warriors list. The Warriors list runs so much high-power targeted removal, especially the Blaze of Glory leader as well. The Vampires, I feel, I've played 2 matchups with Vampires. One, I was the Warriors player against Vampires, and the other I was the Vampires player against Warriors. Both of them, didn't matter who it was, Vampires got crushed by Blaze of Glory Warriors. They just couldn't get anything. Basically, they couldn't get anything useful to stick. Like those big engines we were talking about, Warriors could just answer so efficiently. That being said, I don't think that disqualifies this from S tier. If we think it is, it just probably is going to die to Warriors, but I'm not sure how it is against everything else.
So I'd be tempted to put it in A tier, just because I think it kind of... Okay, so it's also not going to be great against the Universe stuff, right? Because you got to have stuff to bleed to get value from your bleed.
Yeah.
And with Warriors being S tier, I think that's a good argument to put in A tier rather than S tier.
Okay.
I think the cards are incredibly efficient, but I think A tier is solid.
Against quote-unquote normal decks, definitely powerful, but when you're facing abnormals, and like we're playing Attack on Titan or something here, it's like you've got like unit lists, like you've no targets, or they've got tons of control. Like Vampires is probably going to struggle.
Yeah.
All right. So that's monsters done. I kind of realize now we started with Syndicate and then we stopped.
Oh, yeah.
You want to go back to that?
Sure. Let's go back to... Oh, we forgot the most important monsters deck, though. Kikimore Queen. I think is definitely an S tier deck.
Okay.
But apart from that...
Moving on. It's not going to happen. Not yet, at least. Maybe next patch.
Okay.
Passy, or you want to do... Well, let's save the new one for last. Yeah, Passy.
Okay. So, Passiflora has been a staple card in Syndicate for a long time. It's been pretty much carrying the faction for a long while. And I think it's still going to be good. Oh, I just realized we didn't include tribute cards. The tribute deck, but...
That's fine.
We'll get to that in a bit. So, Passy is kind of strong. The engines are really threatening. It can get, get away with run away with points very, very quickly. I think it's probably a solid B tier deck.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's just solid.
Yeah.
It's not great, not terrible.
It's one of these sort of staples. They're just kind of there when you need them. Like the meta's not suiting you. You're like, maybe I'll break out one of these good old, Passy or Shield Wall or something and see how it's gonna do in this meta. Okay. Yeah. Enough said. So this one, I'm gonna let you take the lead on the whole Cleaver Crimes thing. I've not taken much of a look at it yet. So.
Okay, so there have been a few changes to Crimes cards, and they are. I feel like this card is kind of good. It basically is an Intimidate 3 that spawns a crime, and then becomes a spender as well. It's kind of just good. I think it... Honestly, I didn't think Crimes was that good before, but I think this kind of makes it okay. think it might be. It's definitely not a D tier deck. Maybe a C tier. I think it might just be a C tier. I don't think it's fantastic, but like Justice is really strong. I think this Cleaver card's really strong. Horse and Senior still a really strong card. Like it's just got so many powerful cards.
Yeah.
That I think it's kind of good, but I would hesitate to put it in the same ballpark as like Passy Shield Wall. So maybe C tier.
Yep. Yeah, this is the kind of deck that you would basically play, you know, you're the Firesworn leader, and then you would run Horson, and then you would just play a bunch of crimes and have a gourd finisher. Basically that style deck. Yeah, we've not seen that in a long time, but it, you know, it has a time and place, just like everything. Whether or not this deck or this card is going to elevate that into more of a playable range, I think remains to be seen. We're kind of like using our C and D tiers as like our holding pen for unknowns as well, but that's probably the safer line. I think it's better to be wrong about putting something in C or D than to be wrong about putting something in S or A or even B.
Actually, can we move Lippy down to D?
You really think it's that bad?
Yeah, I think it sucks. I think it's like, I look at Syndicate Swarm. I think it's the same level as Syndicate Swarm. Like, I think Lippy sucks.
I mean, that's fine. We can go ahead and do that. I don't think it's honestly, I don't think it's that bad. But is it? I mean, I also evaluate Firesworn or Fireswarm or whatever you want to call it higher. And I kind of feel like this and Lippy are probably on the similar level, so that's fine.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I don't like. You look at the stuff that's above it, and like I just wouldn't see it above like maybe the Dun banner, but I don't know about the Dun banner.
Yeah,
so I can't really comment.
All right. Okay. So that brings us to Nilfgaard Scoytel. Do you want to get the? Should we do miscellaneous Matic first, or maybe leave that for last?
We can do that now. So
I just want to be clear what Matic decks we're talking about, because there's a Matic deck in the Scoytel, and potentially in the Nilfgaard if you're counting the Matic Colgrim Kingslayer thing.
So I think we're gonna include basically the standard sort of like Matic decks are just throwing Matic in there with a load of random other
Random
value
bombs.
cards.
Yeah.
So like the Skellige list, the Old Blaze of Glory list, maybe the Nilfgaard double Matic as well, without Colgrim, the standard list people playing. Those sorts of lists. Just kind of evaluating the card really, not the decks themselves, because they're kind of there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of different variants.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the card is gonna see a lot of play, maybe quite a bit of play. It's not. I don't think there's any reason it will go down in popularity.
Okay.
Card's still solid. Yeah, it kind of synergizes with some of these unitless strategies, right? I don't think it'll be played in. I'm not sure how the trap decks works. Maybe it won't play Matic. Maybe it doesn't have the room. But it does kind of do okay, both playing against unitless. Just because it's kind of. It makes your removed cards have some other value other than just removal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Maddox's a question mark.
I would put it in C, because
maybe.
I'm anticipating putting some of the decks that do use Matic higher. If we're gonna have a bunch of Matic. There's one or two Matic decks specifically in the remaining lineup. And I would never put the like neutral question mark Matic above those. I anticipate putting those probably around B tier or higher. So I think C is a safe place to say. This is sort of like your off meta Matic, like Blaze of Glory Matic kind of thing. Overall, I think it's gonna get power crapped. Like it was kind of nice last season, but with all these new cards, and none of them, I don't think any of them synergize with Matic. So
you could say the ice might get chucked into the Blaze of Glory. Pyro is just a points card.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
I don't think I don't think it'll get particularly less popular or worse, but I think other stuff is getting better, so maybe it's just
Okay.
Like, yeah. Okay. So that's probably fine. C's probably fine.
Shall we move on to the strike deck?
Sure. So this is a Madoc deck. Well, most people are playing it as a Madoc deck. There are several versions floating around. There's the Shiru, there's the non-Shiru. Well, those are the two main ones, right? So depending on what version you're playing, it's going to have different matchups. For instance, I think that the Shiru version can do well into Arrakis Swarm if you're playing against someone who isn't very hard playing around Shiru. I can do well into some of the other Swarm decks like Deadeye, that sort of thing. You could do okay against Warriors. So maybe the Shiru will help out a bit. And also the deck's kind of good at playing Unitless too, right? So how do you think it's going to be kind of okay? And I'd be tempted to put it in A tier.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
I really like this deck last patch, and I think it's just going to get like better with the meta.
Mm-hmm. Have we not found another S tier since Warriors? Wow. Maybe we should do what we did earlier. Do we have any decks that we think would also be S tier?
Maybe Witches. Witches is pretty fucking good.
You think Northern Realms Witchers deserves an upgrade?
Yeah.
Probably does, right? I mean, we've not seen the effect on it from the new cards, but it is pretty good. Like, Witchers probably dies to vampires, doesn't it?
I don't know. I mean, you have your transformy dude, right? Which is gonna help out with some of that bleeding.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be really important.
Yeah, and like your short round potential. If you win round one, you're winning that game because you can just bleed.
It's a battle of who wins round one. Absolutely, like vampires, same thing. Vampires would probably bleed the Witchers, and then they'd win. It's who goes first in round two who wins the game.
Yeah. Although I think if it goes quite deep, vampires might have trouble bleeding Witchers. I think with like a 3-4 card round two, vampires won't have that much power compared to the Witcher deck. So I think I'd give the matchup to the Witchers, but I think it might be close, maybe.
Any of the remaining lineup that you think would go in an S tier?
I think the Nilfgaard decks are gonna be kind of good. Like, I like. I don't know. I think Anna's kind of good.
I mean, you're thinking specifically because of Anna.
Not just because Anna. I think Ball's like a really solid card still, right?
And our Witchers should be an S, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
should be an S
for sure.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. So then, all right, let's continue on with Scoytel. We'll leave Nilfgaard for last, if you like.
Sure.
How about we talk about? Do you want to talk about the new Deadeye traps?
I don't really know much about this deck, to be honest. Don't have too much experience. I know that it goes fairly unitless, just plays a load of traps and then transforms them all with last say into Deadeyes, right?
It has like a lot of potential. Like you can actually get a lot of points over a long round.
Yeah,
I think some of them run. I've seen some of them running Isengrim, so really it's like a 2-turn thing. You play Eldain, or is it Eldain, the new transform traps into face up Deadeyes or whatever. Eldain plays for a ton of points, and they're all hidden points too. And then you jam Isengrim like right after that with full leader, and you've just got a million Deadeyes. Some people are running Verno as well, so you can just, I mean, what they'll do is they'll do Feign Death, they'll do Eldain, and they'll do full leader and Verno. And by that point, you know, you practically your entire board is Deadeyes, and practically all of them are hidden Deadeyes, like the leader charges and the traps. The only ones which are really exposed are the ones that come off Feign Death. So you can set up some huge late round power swings with this deck.
Yeah.
I barely beat one in a long round with the Warriors deck, and I had a card advantage as well, and I barely got it. I think I beat him by like 4 points, just because he had so many Deadeyes at the end of that round.
Right. And that's the deck we're saying is S tier, right? Like,
yeah.
it's barely beating.
I
I
feel like this is gonna be at least an A, personally.
Yeah.
From what I've seen of it.
I think maybe a cautious A is
cautious A.
Reasonable.
Yeah, cautious A. Like traps, obviously they have a big downside. Like they don't like to be bled, right? Like, because they want to be going first and putting their traps down. If you're bleeding them, they're like, oh geez, I want to play my traps, but I play my trap now and he'll just pass, and then my trap I have to spring the trap, and then I lose value. So I think like they need to win round 1, right?
Yeah, right. So yeah, Deadeye used to be quite good at defending the bleed, but obviously this version of Deadeye kind of isn't, right? The traps kind of make that really hard. So round control is going to be super important.
Oh, I'll say maybe I feel like it's A or B, but I'll say cautious A.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
Where to next, Mr. Inferns?
Let's go for standard Deadeye.
All right, standard Deadeye.
Yeah, this is representing the Deadeye list was sort of seeing last patch. I'm gonna say the non-engine versions, the ones just running like Isengrim, just standard like point slam elves rather than the Sentry, Catwitcher, Matron package.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this deck's gonna be solid. There are too many decks high up on the list, I feel like, already, but I think this deck is still like really good.
We can move them around a bit if we want to reevaluate. I think there's no rule here that says that once we place a deck, we can't move it after that.
Yeah, true. I would be tempted to just slam into A tier, honestly. Like,
okay.
I think this deck's really good.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Sure. Yeah, it has different strengths and weaknesses than the trap version, but they could be similar in power range. Nature's Gift.
Okay, so I don't like this deck, and I've never liked it. But so I'm talking about the Devotion variant because I think that's the most relevant variant to consider. I don't like it. I never have, but I respect that it's probably quite good. It's probably very high B or
I think it's a
A.
B.
Yeah, I think B is fair enough.
Yeah, it does good. It does really well against certain matchups, but like not as good against others. Like I don't feel like it's overtuned or anything. Like it's definitely been balanced and it's okay. It's like in a good spot. It's like I don't know.
It has a lot of points.
Yeah, to me it's like one of those decks I bust out from time to time, like when my other Scoytel decks aren't working. Just like I bust out Shield Wall when Northern Realms Witchers keeps getting countered. I'm like, okay, let me try something else. My B tier backup. B's for backup. Not really. Okay. Dwarves?
Dwarves is an interesting one. And I think it's kind of like Breathe is kind of nuts. Like kind of like a Gezus that goes off every turn, right? Because Barricade is so easy to keep on it, so it needs to get heat waved to get answered, right? And that card.
You're talking about which one? Which card from Dwarves?
So
the new one.
The new one, yeah. Breather.
Breather. It does. So let's see. Does it need to get heat waved? I mean, I don't know. Warriors can deal with it pretty easily. Like, so yes, it gets armor based off the number of dwarves in your hand.
Yeah,
but it's not a card that you're gonna play early. So I mean,
no. So it'll be like probably like 3, maybe
4 armor.
2
sometimes
armor.
They can do like Justice and Volunteers, Zoltan's Company. They can like swarm the row pretty quickly.
Yeah. It also gets 1 from your leader as well, right? And you can potentially buff it with leader if you're up against Devotion Warriors or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think like certain decks have this sort of privilege where they don't have to commit to a heat wave or something. They can just deal that amount of damage reasonably. Hjalmar is a big one.
Yeah.
Pretty easily meet that.
I do think for this deck though, this is just a better Gezrus, like.
Oh, it is. Absolutely, it is.
Which is kind of insane. Like Gezrus is a really strong card.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is locked dwarves, so it is like, the dwarves are kind of not in the greatest place without this card, but I think this might be enough to make them good.
Has a floor of 14, right? Or 11.
Yeah.
With the setup.
I mean, you gotta fill your row, I guess, but
with, like I said, with company, with justice, and you opt to go the whole Zoltan and Berserker transformation route, which spawn two rowdy dwarves.
Yeah, the into Berserkers.
You have lots of ways to play 3 dwarves at a time on a row.
Yeah. And you've got Justice as well, right? Justice is like
those
really
3.
strong.
Those 3. Zoltan's company, Justice, and what is it? Zoltan Warrior or
Zoltan,
the one?
Yeah.
Those 3 cards that spawn 3 dwarves on a row, which is already pretty big, and then you've got Figus, which spawns 2 dwarves and also protects your Brewer. Like,
yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to just fill your row up, and
don't play this in a Yurden meta.
Yeah. I mean, with dwarves as well, you want to be filling your row, right? Because other cards that like force you to do that, right? The payoff cards in dwarves.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Guard, I guess.
Pardon?
I think it's the guard that boosts by the number of dwarves in that row.
Yeah, I think it is Mahakam Guard, and then Barclay as well.
Yeah, so you already want to be stacking, and so this card just plays into that more. Kind of good, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That being said, dwarves is kind of bad.
I beat it with warriors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like, sorry, I know I keep talking about warriors. It's one of the only decks I've played since the patch.
I mean, I've played 1 games.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, warriors is really cool for sure.
Warriors privilege. You can just deal big damage again and again and again, and against dwarves, that's great because you've got lots of tall, good targets. You've got Gabor. You've got what's his starts with the letter X. I want to say I always want to say Zarthisius, but it's not Zarthisius. That's the Nilfgaard card. We'll just say the dwarf that boosts himself by 1 every turn as long as he has barricade and gains armor when you play dwarves.
Oh, Xavier,
yeah. Xavier, Gabor. Now we've got Brewer. We've got Biggest. Like, lots of tall targets, but warriors kind of like they kind of like eat that for breakfast, right?
Deal 12 damage, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, okay, I'm going to deal 12 damage. I'm going to deal 10 damage. Here's 5 damage from my Scoytel, 5 damage from my War of Clans, and it's like, okay, I can't really get anything started against that. Oh dear.
I think probably C tier, honestly. I don't think it's gonna be.
It's not A. It's definitely not A.
Yeah.
C tier, you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably on the same level as Crimes.
That's sad to me.
It's sad.
I want dwarves to be good. I miss when dwarves were OP for about a week. You remember that?
I don't. When was this in her?
This was like right when they came out, and they were like they were S tier for about a week, and then they got a ton of nerfs and a hotfix.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't remember when that was. So it was like a year ago or something.
I think I might have not been playing, but that's.
I think that was that might have been the expansion where armor came out. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
it's a feature, but yeah, because barricade was a big part of their archetype.
Yeah.
All right. So, Nilfgaard. What are we doing with? How about Masquerade Ball?
Okay. So we're talking about the standard, like, control-y sort of mid, like, play lots of 10 provision, really strong Nilfgaard cards and Masquerade Ball. In terms of the Masquerade Ball. What that card's representing. So you lose Lockdown, right? Which was the standard leader for this deck. I don't think Lockdown is very good. I think the new Lockdown is kind of trash against anyone that knows what they're doing.
Okay.
So I think people are going to opt for either Double Cross for the provisions or Imposter for the control and synergy with Vanhamar and such.
Yep.
However, you do have Anna, which I think is kind of good against a lot of these decks we're going to be seeing, right? If we're expecting Witches, that's Uprising, Anna is so good with that against that. Like, against Blaze of Glory, it can be kind of bad, but also if you're holding Invo, it's not that bad, right? Because you Invo a card, then you get that leader, and then you Blaze of Glory, right?
Isn't Blaze of Glory specific to Skellige units? Or
Yeah,
no?
so you'd have to Invo something.
Yeah,
it's not a great matchup for Anna, but I think it's still okay because you're gonna want to be invoing like a tall greatsword or Yata anyway, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's gonna be a little bit more clunky, but I think it's still okay. And there's no terrible like Arrakis Swarm isn't great. Carapace is quite good. I think Blood Scent is quite good. Precision Strike is pretty okay. It's 7 points.
Did Nilfgaard get any other buffs? I didn't read too much about them.
So I don't think they got the other card, right? Which is Emir, which is basically a crazy like scaling spying card. But I don't like spies still feel super clunky. Like you got to play your enforcers, then you got to play this 7 power card that might just die. You also need round control, but a lot of your tools feel kind of like clunky to put around 1, so you got to have a good round 1 hand.
I mean, it's still gonna. So here's the thing. I feel that the ball with enforcers and the whole spying thing with Fergus and everything is probably one of the strongest long rounds in the game.
Yeah.
It's sort of like unprecedented in terms of its control and value. The problem is getting to that long round and then going first in that long round, right?
Yeah.
But Emir kind of just says, okay, that long round is, again, it's even more powerful now, and it's sort of like a nice new 11 provision card to fill that gap that was left by the nerf to Vincent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it can be kind of good. I'm not sure where I would put it, but it's like it doesn't really help solve the problem of the deck. It's sort of almost, I guess it's like a little win more for Nilfgaard, right? Because like
kind of, yeah, you're kind of already winning a long round if you're
like you get in that position, you should be good. The problem is when you're getting bled and you have Masquerade Ball in hand, you're like, do I play the ball? Do I save the ball? If I play it, how do I get some advantage over my opponent? I don't know if Emir, what would Emir do in that situation? Like, it's a 7-point play. It has this weird deck fixing kind of ability. Draw a card, then move a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. Like, what's that all about?
It's like Daedric.
Yeah, I don't really like understand. Like, that doesn't. What does that? What does that do?
A bit weird,
like,
yeah, it's a bit weird on that.
I feel like you just slap that. You could slap that ability on anything. Like, why Emir? Why did Emir get that ability? And
if it's the top of deck, it would be cool. You play it with a fan, right?
Yeah, maybe. I guess it synergizes a bit with like Invo. Put a card on top of your deck, and then you can draw that card. But
I suppose, yeah.
I guess what it can be. It can basically be a 9-point floor if you've played a 1 power spy beforehand, because it immediately, at the end of your turn, it'll immediately start to seize, and it'll seize a 1 power spying unit, right?
Yeah.
So, that's pretty good. 11 provision card with a 9 power floor and then a really high ceiling, right? Like it's like
Yeah, it has to be answered.
I mean, the ceiling on that is actually pretty insane, right? Because it's like 2 points per turn as long as there's 1 power spying units, and then it's giving spying to every unit the opponent plays. So if you have an enforcer,
Yep,
it's like game over, pretty much.
yeah. So you just yoink every unit every turn.
I think it's actually really good. Like now that I'm thinking about it, it's
Yeah, but the trouble is, it's got to stick, right?
I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, first of all, it's a 7 power, so that's hard to
Yeah.
remove. Second of all, it has a 9 power floor, so at worst, with if you do your setups, which everyone's gonna do their setups, and you're gonna play it for 9 points, it's 11 provision card. Not great, but it's not bad either. We're talking floor here, and then especially for such a high ceiling, that's not a bad floor at all. I don't think.
Okay, yeah.
I had a third point. What was my third point? Oh yeah, it kind of forks the opponent's tall removal, right? Because you're also going to be playing Joachim and Ku. So if they use their tall punish on the Emir, well, all of a sudden your Joachim's not going to get tall punished if it's like a heat wave. Well, I guess heat wave has to go on the ball, right? I think it's good. I think it's good because I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I still do think it's like, for all the pieces are kind of clunky. Like enforcers have always felt really like clunky to play with in your deck because you kind of want to be slamming your bronzes to win round 1. Your Ramon's often a round 1 tool, like so playing these cards just kind of makes everything a bit more clunky. But still really strong. Like the new cards are really strong. Ball's really really strong.
Okay, where do we put it?
I like Estet. I think a deck with ball is going to be Estet.
Okay.
Like
I could see that. I was thinking A, but A is pretty
insane.
stacked.
Yeah.
We can do that. Alright, 2 more. Let's bang these out. Assimilate.
I think this deck, like, it's probably gonna play. I don't know if it's gonna stay the same. I think it might play Adder as well, honestly. Like, that card's just kind of good. It can be kind of good at least.
Assimilate to me kind of feels like a B or an A. Probably a B.
Yeah, I'd say a B or an A, and like high B, low A, right? Like,
I think B is fine for
I think
Assimilate.
B is fine. Yeah, it's kind of like it scales so heavily. I know in the last qualifier, Red Rain brought it obviously and just got banned every single time. Like every game.
Here's the thing though, it's like I don't know if I would evaluate Assimilate 2 tiers underneath normal ball. Like it's almost equivalent to normal ball in certain situations. So if we're gonna put ball up here, I would put it in A personally.
Maybe.
Alright, we'll put it in A then. And that just leaves Colgrim.
D, throw in D, please.
Okay, D. Done. Now.
D, done.
Really?
I hate this deck. I want it to leave. Go away.
You hate it because it's hard to beat, right?
Do I hate it because it's hard to beat? I just kind of
that's
hate
my guess.
The idea. I hate the idea of it. Like, it's just, it is hard to beat, but the way it's hard to beat is not fun for anyone. Like, it's so dependent on your round 1 hand, on what matchup you're in. Like, it can be kind of gross, but the adrenaline is gonna hurt it a lot. Like,
so the adrenaline change here
from 2 to 1.
2 to 1. So that is cutting 1/3 off of Colgrim's power.
Yeah,
that's a 33% nerf to his power, which is a lot. Considering this card can play for like, I don't know, 30 points or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And also,
so now, yeah, sorry, continue.
I was just gonna say that also, I mean, if anyone's still playing non-Nova Colgrim, that nerf carries along to the Kingslayer, which would want to copy him.
Yeah, so Kingslayer's only getting
really
1
work.
turn.
Yeah, it's not good.
Unless you're playing Colgrim as a 1 behind Thunder.
I think like D. Honestly, maybe it is D tier. That's like a huge nerf. That's like a V tier nerf, like to the deck.
Yeah.
And also, Viper Witcher mentors, we had mentioned this. They got put back. They got put back into a reasonable range. They're still OP, but
so I think Colgrim still outputs a lot of points, right? But the thing is, you're building your whole deck around this card, and now it's comparable to other build around cards, right? It's not insane. You compare it to some of the vampire build around cards, and it's actually kind of worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although I do think the build around, like, the clogging effect is very powerful, very annoying as well, but it is very powerful. So maybe it didn't have a massive deck building cost, but I think it's going to be a lot weaker, and I think DT is fair.
All right. So that puts us at the end of the pre-organizing stage. Now moving on to part B, where we will go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, do you see anything here that maybe we need to adjust after having arranged everything into different tiers? Contextually, I mean, we can kind of, like, is dwarves better than Colgrim? Like, that makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
Shield wall.
So I think there was a deck missing from S tier, and I think Kikimor Queen should definitely be.
Here we go.
No, I think we're about fine thinking about it. Obviously, the ones I'm most questioning are the new decks, like the Dunbanner Swarm. I'm really not sold on. But maybe it'll come out and surprise me and become an S tier deck. Like, that can always happen with these new decks, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it can. When you don't know what you're dealing with, it takes like someone to find that like perfect setup, that perfect card combination, and all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, Voltest is actually broken, but no one realized it until the one person did it. I think this seems okay. So we've got, as our S tiers, we've got Harold representing Warriors, and Iced is just really, I mean, Warriors was always just good, and then Iced is just taking it over the top to the next level with Blaze of Glory. Witchers, and then Masquerade Ball. I think, seems good.
Yeah, seems fine. We have a lot of decks this time around.
Yeah.
There are a lot of decks
there's a lot of archetypes nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, true. There's a lot of stuff you play. It's really diverse meta. Let's hope that continues into this patch when we get bits deeper.
Yeah, I hope so too. Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
I think that's it.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining Inferns and myself today. We hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment below. It would help us out quite a bit. And definitely let us know if you agree with these predictions or if you think we got something wrong. Either way, we're happy to hear from you. Feedback is great. That being said, I hope you all enjoy playing in the Season of the Bear. Take care, and we will see you next time.
See you later.